Yo, what's going on, Titan Clan? It is your boy, King Titan Next here, back with another video. I sent in that thumbnail like the other day. What if Asta was Broly's reincarnate? That thing got like 20 likes on the community post. So I was like, you know what? I gotta do it. Even if I don't got a script right now, this can at least be a rough draft version of it. And if you guys mess with it, I'm going to make more videos of it. Here's some and another thing, here's how I'm going to be doing videos from now on. Like views and like ratios. Like if I get a good amount of views and likes, I will continue to do a series. If I don't, that's tough. But yeah, basically here's what's happening. Alright, so everybody knows who Broly is. Everybody knows that Broly is a very, very strong character. So people would wonder how he would exactly die. Obviously, he would probably end up dying from old age at the very least. That's one of the things I would probably end up saying. Because I don't believe that he would wish for immortality or anything. He would have had a good life with Chilai. Yes, I'm going to be using the new Broly. The canon Broly. But besides that, when it came on to life in general for Broly, life was pretty good for him. Sure, he was on Vampa training most of the time, but he also got to meet new people like Goku who were able to actually help him throughout his time, who were able to make his life just a bit better. And it helped that he wasn't alone either. There were people that genuinely cared for him. They weren't like his father, who basically ended up just using him as a sort of weapon. So he ended up dying peacefully. Now, he also ended up getting reincarnated as well. He ended up getting reincarnated into a baby boy's body. What ends up happening is that when Asta is born, Asta seems to be a very peculiar child, in where he is incredibly strong for his age. Very, very strong. Ridiculously strong, if you could say, I guess. Enough to the point where it could actually be kind of harmful. He couldn't play amongst the other kids because of just how strong he was. He couldn't manage his strength that well in the beginning years. Some of the adults actually feared Asta because of his strength. But he did end up developing better. He ended up developing more and more. The more he developed, the stronger he became. And he ended up looking like one of those cases of where the child is just incredibly ripped from a super young age. Basically that sort of muscular disorder that you see with some of those children online. Those children online that you see, you would probably think are photoshopped or something because of just how muscular they are at such a young age. That's basically how Asta looked throughout the years. And he was incredibly lean too. Muscular and lean. That's a dangerous combination. But beyond that, Asta just wanted to have friends. But he also wanted to have magic. He wanted to marry Sister Lily. For whatever odd reason. She was just so nice to him overall, despite the times where she would hit him with her water fist magic. That was basically one of the only abilities that she had within her grimoire, so he didn't really mind it, especially with how just ineffective it was to him. Every time that it hit him, it just felt like a splash of water. Really, there wasn't really much force to it. At least in his perspective. Every time Sister Lily used it, she was putting as much strength into it as possible. So for Asta to just tank those attacks, it kind of made her uneasy, because this kid was not normal. And she knew that, and just looking at his appearance. But something that was also kind of interesting about Asta was the fact that he had pure black eyes. And when it came onto his hair as well, it was a darker tint of gray, or ash blonde. Yeah, because apparently his hair is actually ash blonde in canon, not gray or something. Unfortunately, I'm going to just call it gray for now. It's going to be gray. A very a darker tint of gray, to say the very least. What ended up happening though is that Asta still doesn't have magic here, but what he does have in exchange is ki. Because of the same traits of his that he actually inherited from being a reincarnation of Broly, he also has the ability to get stronger from every fight. He's just naturally strong as well. Like, he has a strong power level, and at just like the age of 4, when he's around 8, he actually ends up going with his foster brother Yuno to collect some things for the church. They were walking back in the snow. Unfortunately though, there was one thing that was an issue for them, which was there was some drunkard. There was a drunkard that was walking in the snow as well. He ended up seeing Yuno's amulet, his necklace, and figured, hey, I could actually get that for a pretty price. I could actually steal that kid's necklace, sell it to the pawn shop or something. I could auction it off. I could make a pretty good amount of money and to buy some more booze. That's what was going through the man's mind at the time. So he ended up walking over to Yuno. He grabbed Yuno by the arm and then basically yanked off his necklace, trying to take that away from him. Asta wasn't having that though, and he actually fought back. He actually fought the man in order to get back Yuno's necklace. This actually touched Yuno because of the fact that he felt that he was weak. He felt inferior to Asta, even though Asta didn't seem to have magic. He was incredibly powerful for someone of his age, stature, and everything. Like, he was taking down grown men at the age of 4 already. And look at Yuno. Like, sure, he has some magic. He has this wind affinity. But he has this wind magic. That's cool and all, but he didn't really think it compared to Asta's pure unbridled strength. When it came on to Asta, he was just like a whole nother beast. He was just crazy strong. Yuno aspired to be like that. And just seeing how Asta fought this man, it was just amazing to him. He didn't want to feel so weak ever again in his life. He felt completely defenseless against this man. This man just went up to him and just snatched his necklace away from him. And then he had to have somebody else fight his battles for him. He didn't want to feel weak. He didn't want to feel useless. He didn't want to feel like a damsel in distress all of the time. So that's what ended up making Yuno wanting to become more like Asta, to become strong, to become more headstrong, become muscular and everything. He even ended up, what do you call it again? He even ended up lifting weights. He ended up actually working his own physical body as well, in order to actually get it to the point where it can actually compete with Asta's own. Well, even then, it still couldn't compete with Asta's body. Asta was just too strong for his age. He was too muscular and everything. He worked out, sure, but sometimes he didn't really even need to work out. He could like not work out for a year and still be more muscular than Yuno. That was the craziest part about Asta, and it just didn't make sense to Yuno, but he still decided to keep on trying. He even ended up trying to help Asta get back his necklace. He even ended up helping Asta when it came on to the fight with the drunkard man. The drunk guy in the snow. Except they went a little too far here and actually ended up knocking him out unconscious. He was actually bleeding from his temple, his right temple, because Asta actually punched him too hard here. And what's crazy here is that he actually almost went berserk. His hair actually started flickering in between gray and green, lime green. That was something that was kind of weird to That was something kind of weird to but he decided to not question it. He was thinking that maybe this is like his potential magic awakening or something. He decided, you know what? Let me just leave that for right now. It didn't really matter in the long run, anyways. It just seemed like there was like a sudden powerful shift in Asta's power, in Asta's strength, all of that. It just seemed like he became a completely different being all of a sudden, but just for a flicker of time, just for a second. So they decided to leave. They ended up going back to the church and ended up telling that their foster parents, I forgot the man's name. I don't think I can really pronounce his name anyways. But you all should know who I'm talking about, the pastor, the one that owns the church. Like the pastor of the church, the priest of the church. He actually was quite alarmed hearing what ended up happening to Yuno and Asta, and actually looked about their wounds, looking to see if they were okay, looking to see if they were injured anyway. Thankfully, they really weren't. Like maybe there was some bruise marks on because of how the man grabbed him, but that was about it overall. Asta, he barely had any scratches on him, like because he was just on a whole nother level compared to that man. He didn't really even need Yuno's help here. It was just good to have. It was just a tag team. It was a tag team battle. Although Asta didn't necessarily like having to fight 2-on-1, since he found that to be a bit unfair, but at the same time he decided, you know what, let's just leave it. Like it is Yuno's necklace that we're fighting for anyways, so it makes sense that Yuno would want to fight for his belongings. And that was the whole reason Asta was fighting in the first place, for Yuno. So he just shrugged it off. And he continued to train. He actually really did enjoy training, even if he would never admit it. He was a bit on the shyer side as well. Like he didn't speak as much as he would in canon. He wasn't much the yelling type either. You would have to get him extremely mad in order for him to really yell, and that was on very rare occasions. Like he would still give it his all. He liked training. He liked to give it his all in a fight, but his nature, he just had a more calm nature overall. Something that many of his foster siblings actually liked about him. And they weren't too loud. They were like those cool big brothers to them. The big brothers that they would have probably never had. So over the years, Yuno and Asta would talk about becoming Wizard King. Yuno would actually make fun of Asta, saying how he doesn't really have any magic, so there's no way he could become Wizard King. But Asta would comment on the fact that, hey, you see how strong I am? I may just have like some sort of magic called like strength magic, body magic or something. you guys should know who I'm talking about when I say body magic. But like, I might just have like a muscle sort of magic or something, because look how muscular I am at such a young age. Yuno would just say that that's a disorder. Like, that is like an illness. That's some sort of disorder you have. That's not magic. Asta would just roll his eyes and be like, you know what? Whatever. He wouldn't really get into a big fight against Yuno. He just didn't really feel like it over the years. He was just more laid back overall. He was willing to fight whenever it was needed, but fighting for the sake of fighting, it wasn't necessarily in his nature here. Sure, he would spar, sure, but when it came on to sparring, there was always like a limit that you wouldn't be able to cross. And there was always a limit that you shouldn't be able to cross when it comes to sparring. That limit was always broken when it came on to a full-on fight. So just like a playful fight, a playful spar, Asta was okay with. when it came on to fighting to the death or something, and that's where Asta would actually cross the line. That's actually where but that's where Asta would actually draw the line, because he refused to ever fight a person to the death unless it was absolutely necessary. And he ended up actually meditating more often as well throughout the years, trying to gain a balance of his strength, because he didn't like to hurt people. He honestly didn't. And there was like this powerful energy that was just calling to him in the nights. Like, he wanted to see what was up with that power. He wanted to see how he could actually achieve that power. He remembered feeling it for a second when he was fighting that drunk man in the snow that night. But it just was never there ever again. Like, sure, he would feel it sometimes. He would feel it starting to creep up, but it just would never reach out like it did when he fought that drunk man. He wanted to experience what that was like again. And he ended up actually, well, simply put, meditating. He actually meditated in order to get more control over his emotions, over his strength, all of that. And he actually did. Over the years, he actually started to gain more mastery over his strength. He didn't actually hurt people as much as he used to. He could actually lift up one of his foster siblings and not actually crush them in his hands. He was actually really happy. Of course, when it came on to like the ceremony though, unfortunately, he did not get a grimoire. No, he did not. What ended up happening instead is that everybody would laugh at him, saying that he was pathetic for not being able to get a grimoire. Although, it wouldn't be as many people laughing here, because in this canon, I would say that Asta is just around Yami's height. I would say like an inch or two just below Yami in height, and he was fairly muscular too. I don't know why I'm saying fairly muscular. He was extremely muscular. So muscular to the point where it almost put Yami to shame. And the fact that he was so shredded at the same time, it just didn't make sense to many people. Like, they were wondering what sort of elixir is he taking in order to be that ripped and muscular at the same time. You could literally see his veins popping as well. Like, all of the time, they just looked at him and they were just amazed at Asta. Like, some girls would actually flirt with Asta until they found out that he had no magic. But beyond that, that's pretty much how it would go until laughing ended. Asta would actually walk home disappointed in the fact that he didn't have a grimoire, and he would actually continue to train until. He would actually hone his abilities, and something that he actually ended up discovering is key sensing. Not the sensing from not the key sensing from Black Clover either. I'm talking about the true key sensing from Dragon Ball. Like, he was able to sense people's energy. That's something that he actually awakened over the years. He was actually able to sense people's energy, sense if that person was in distress or something, because of like the fluctuation in their energy levels, their power levels. And he suddenly ended up felt Yuno's starting to decrease. He felt Yuno be in some sort of distress. He actually ended up running out of the forest, and he actually suddenly discovered he could fly. Like, he was rushing over to see what happened to Yuno. He was looking for Yuno everywhere, and he actually ended up jumping out of the forest. And he jumped out of the forest so high to the point where he was just like several meters off the ground, for crying out loud. He jumped out of his sitting location. He jumped out of the forest, Suddenly, boom, he's floating in the sky. He decided not to question it for right now, and just went zooming by to find Yuno. He couldn't wait for much longer. He needed to find out what was going on with Yuno. Why was his power level going down so drastically? What he ended up finding was that Yuno was actually chained by this magic dude, this weird looking dude with like this shaggy not blonde hair, with this shaggy black hair, like this long curl, like this long wavy black hair, and there was like a burn mark on his face going down all the way to his chin or something. And this guy looked kind of creepy, and Asta just bombarded this man. He ripped off Yuno's chains and actually questioned what was happening. Yuno explained what was happening. He explained that the man basically was trying to steal his grimoire. After all, it was a four-leaf clover grimoire. So that was already incredibly rare, and the fact that like the only people to really possess a four-leaf grimoire were like the first Wizard King. And I'm not sure if there were much more people who had grimoires like that. So they already knew that Yuno would possess great luck in his life. They wanted to know if they could actually possess that grimoire. Sure, they couldn't necessarily kill him, but they could actually decrease his chances of ever making it into the world of magic knights by stealing his grimoire and selling it to like the highest bidder. That was basically this man's intent right now. He was going to sell his grimoire for like a hefty price, and Yuno would be absolutely defenseless without his grimoire, because of the fact that a grimoire can actually make your magic so much more powerful than without it. So basically, this chain wielding magic man, I forgot his name, he actually decided to go at Asta, thinking that, oh, it was probably just a fluke that he was able to rip the chains off so easily. He doubted that Asta was actually strong enough to really get through his chain magic, but he was incredibly mistaken, because when the chains wrapped around Asta, he was easily able to break out of them. Asta was actually angry because of the fact that this man tried to harm Yuno. He tried to steal something valuable from Yuno, and he just remembered the day when he first used that sort of transformation, that sort of power. He was angry. He was angry at the fact that somebody would try and do this, try and ruin somebody else's reputation, try and ruin somebody else's chances of making it somewhere in the world. Because both Yuno and Asta had the same goal in life. They wanted to become Wizard King, although for different reasons. Let's see, because with Asta it was for a woman. That's hilarious still. Oh jeez, but yeah, I would say that beyond that, Asta would actually end up tapping into this transformation of his. He would actually tap into the Akari state. I wouldn't necessarily say that he would reach into his legendary Super Saiyan form. He wouldn't tap into like that sort of transformation or his Berserker state. He wouldn't necessarily tap into that for right now. And the reason why I'm even giving him transformations in the first place is because I just felt like it. Like there's, like with all the different races there are in Black Clover, having a person who can transform isn't going to be that weird in Black Clover. So that's basically how I'm going to say it. That's my explanation. You guys can give a better explanation in the comments below if you wish. But that's how I'm going to say it. And basically, when it comes down to transformations, that's just how Asta's body seemed to work, for some very odd reason that I won't really get into for right now. He would tap into the Akari state and actually attack the man. The chain magic user would try and continue to bombard Asta with chain magic, and like he would have like these spikes at the end of his chains. He would try and form his chains into weapons and all of that. Everything he used in his arsenal was just useless against Asta. He literally just busted through everything. Everything was just worthless to Asta right now because of the fact that nothing would really work against him. He hated this man with a passion right now because of what he tried to do to his friend Yuno, his rival. He wouldn't let that happen again. And he would also end up training Yuno as well. He actually, while in his Akari state, would actually fly at the man and charge a beam of energy. A green beam of energy in one hand and actually slam it into the man, sending him back with so much force. He actually ended up hitting the wall, and the wall ended up cracking as well. This man's back was broken, I tell you. This man was immediately left unconscious. Asta actually went up to the book, the grimoire that was on the floor, picked it up, and handed it to Yuno. He actually calmed down afterwards and actually fell unconscious. Yuno sighed because Asta was not a light individual, not at all, honestly. So he ended up using his wind magic in order to bring Asta back to the church, because he refused to carry this man using his bare strength alone. Absolutely not. You got me all the way messed up. He could not drag him for the life of him. He could not drag Asta for the life of him if he really wanted either. So yeah, that's basically how I'm going to end it. And for the next couple of months, Yuno and Asta would be training together. Training for the Magic Knight exam. Like for the competition to actually make it into the Magic Knights. They knew that they had to train very hard. And Asta, when he learned about this transformation of his, like, it was very interesting to him. And over the months, they would actually be training together in order to unlock that transformation again. Although, for some odd reason, it seemed to only work when Asta was incredibly angry. Was this like some sort of magical mutation or something? That was like the only reason. That was like their main reason. That was like the only thing that they could chalk it up to. Like some sort of magical mutation that allowed him to transform into like these different states of power. And the reason that he didn't have a grimoire is because of that. Yuno also mentioned the fact that he seemed to use this weird green energy, and figured that that may be some sort of magic as well, like some sort of energy magic, which was interesting to say the very least. So that's basically how I'm going to end it. I'm going to say that by the end of these couple of months of training, Yuno and Asta have reached like a power level that was much greater than they were before. Yuno is unable to actually use that energy manipulation that Asta has, but he is able to actually unlock key sensing. Although it's a weakened version of it, in where he's just able to tell like a person's movements, not necessarily be able to track them from a distance, and track their power levels, track their increasing or decreasing power levels. Granted, he did have mana, so he didn't really even need it in the first place. He could sense a person's mana. That's pretty much it. That's basically how I'm going to end it. When it comes on to Asta, he has actually achieved that energy manipulation. He's actually achieved the manipulation of ki completely. Now that he has somebody to really train with in order to really unlock this ability. That's basically how I'm going to say it. He's unlocked the Akari state, and he's unlocked the ability to use ki. So now he can fly properly. He can fly whenever he wishes, and he can actually shoot ki beams from his hands, from his mouth, anywhere in his body. Really. And yeah, that's all I have for right now. Let's see if we can get like 20 likes on this. 10 to 20 likes will actually be good. King Titan X out.